في المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا مولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا، اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك آمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
I pray all of you are well, inshallah ta'ala. All praise and thanks be to Allah ta'ala. Our salutations and greetings upon our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. May Allah bless our lessons and grant us beneficial knowledge. Allahu Ameen. In the previous lesson, we finished, completed Surah Naziat, and I wanted to quickly just go through a thematic breakdown of the surah. And you can assist me with that, inshallah. I haven't prepared it beforehand, so let's go through it together. And we can just mark off where the theme is, where the section is, and what the main message is. So where the ayah range is and what the main message is. So أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والنازعات غرقا والناشطات نشطا والسابحات سبحا. So where does this end, this theme?
Verse 5.
Verse number 5. Okay, so what did you characterize at first five verses as?
As the oaths, the qasam.
Okay, so let's do 1 to 5. 1 to 5 is the oath. We discussed that the oath, there's a lot of different meanings. The oath could be about angels, angels. It could be about what else did we mention? Could be
it could be about the planetary, the heavenly bodies.
Okay, heavenly bodies, and maybe a mixture of different things, different oaths. Okay, the most common one is going to be about the angels. So the oath is the most commonly about the angels, and one could add there could be a connotation of the angels at the process of death or the time of death. Okay, and then from verse number 6, يوم ترجف الراجفة تتبع الرادفة قلوب يومئذ واجفة أبصارها خاشية يقولون إنا لمردودون في الحافرة. Where does that section end?
Verse 9.
Okay, so maybe I should translate, inshallah. يوم ترجف الراجفة, on the day when the earth will be shaken, تتبعها الرادفة, and then it will be followed up by a second trumpet blow. قلوب يومئذ واجفة, hearts on the day will be trembling, will be shaking. أبصارها خاشعة, and sights will be humbled. And then يقولون changes again, so that verse number 6 to 9 would be a separate section, because speaking about what? Speaking about the end of time, to the end of time, and let's call it the events at the end of time. Events at the end of time. And then from verse number 10, it's going into the questioning of the mushrikun to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. يقولون, they are saying, أئنا لمردودون في الحافرة, are we going to be returned to the former state? إذا كنا عظاما نخرة, after we have become decayed bones. قالوا تلك إذا كرة خاسرة. Allah will then say that is going to be or they then say that will be a return filled with loss. Then Allah then responds to them, فَإِنَّمَا هِيَ زَجْرَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ, it will be one shake, فَإِذَا هُمْ بِالسَّاهِرَةِ, and then they will be brought to the surface. So we can end that section on 14. So 10 to 14, we can call it the argument and reply to the deniers of resurrection. Okay. Then 15 starts a whole, not 15, are we right place? Yes, 15 starts a new, so where does 15 end? Where does section 15 end?
26.
هل أتاك حديث موسى? Has the news of Nabi Musa came to you? إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى, when his Lord called him by the holy valley of طوى. اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى, go to Fir'aun, verily has transgressed. فهل لك إلى أن تزكى, and then say to him, do you want to become pure? أهدي وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى, and I will guide you to my Lord and you will be, you'll be humbled. فأراه الآية الكبرى, then he showed him the great sign. فكذب وعصى, he denied and he transgressed. ثم أدبر يسعى, when he turned his back and he strove against Nabi Musa. فحشر فنادى, and he gathered his people. فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى, and he Fir'aun said, I am the Lord Most High. فأخذه الله نكال الآخرة والأولى, then Allah took him as a punishment for the beginning and for the end of time. إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى. Indeed, in that story of Fir'aun, there is an ibra, a lesson for those that have khashya, those who have fear. So that's going to be 15 to 26. And when you characterize 15 to 26, what do you say about it? Besides saying it's about Fir'aun, what aspect of Fir'aun is it?
The defiance.
Defiance. Okay, good. So the defiance. So
Arrogance.
it's arrogant. So in other words, Fir'aun invitation to the truth is called truth for now. Truth is rejection and destruction. In other words, the outcome. Okay, and then we go from 27 onwards. So where does 27 end?
33 maybe?
33.
أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها? Are you more difficult to create, or the sama, or the heavens? بناها, he has built it. رفع سمكها فسواها, he raised its ceilings and he even it formed it. وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها, and he darkened its night and he brought forth its morning light. والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها, and the earth after that he spread it out. أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها, he brought forth from the earth its water and its pasture. والجبال أرساها, and the mountains he set down firmly. متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم, as a provision for you and for your cattle. So 33. So what do you characterize that sub theme as?
Favors of Allah.
Okay, favors could be one, or I'll ask you to phrase it.
Allah gives
Evidences.
examples of His power and might through His signs of
Okay.
creation.
Examples of, let's call it creative power in, let's say, natural phenomena. Okay. And then we carry on where Allah says, فَإِذَا جَاءَتِ الطَّامَّةُ الْكُبْرَى. Let me just enter on the line here quickly. So where does this end? 34 until?
41.
فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى, when the overwhelming event will come, يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى, and people will remember what they have striven for. وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى, and the hellfire will be made manifest for whoever is looking. فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا, and so whoever has transgressed and he has preferred the worldly life, فإن الجحيم هي المأوى, then the hellfire will be this person's abode. وأما من خاف مقام ربه, as for the one that fears the cessation of his Lord, ونهى النفس عن الهوى, and he stops his lower self from desires, فإن الجنة هي المأوى, and then paradise will be his ma'wa, his refuge. So 41. How do you characterize that as?
Allah tells us what the ending is for those who disbelieve and those who do good and believe, like judgment and the two outcomes.
Okay, judgment day and the two outcomes. Good. And then we carry on from 42. Yes, ألونك عن الساعة أيانا مرساها. They ask you about the hour of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When will it occur? فيما أنت من ذكراها. You are not. How are you able to mention it? إلى ربك منتهاها. To Allah, its knowledge is to Allah is its knowledge. إنما أنت منذر من يخشاها. You are the warner of those who fear it. كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحاها. So as on it will be as if on the day that they see it, they would not have remained except for an evening or a morning. So how do we characterize that?
The role of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So Prophet Muhammad's role and
Qiyamah.
role, and we could even like put we could put 46 separately, I suppose, if we wanted to, or a sub theme. We could make that 45. But 46 will just be the كأنهم يوم ينبث إلا عشية أو ضحاها. It's more about the feeling of the brevity of life when the final hour comes, when Qiyamah comes. Okay, so that's basically, again, we're just going through this quickly just to share how this is done and so on. And now, if we had to link these, I mean, in a sense, everything is linked to everything else. They're all part of one big one. Like, okay, let me ask you first before you link anything. What do you think? So Allah at the beginning takes an oath. Let's say for now, for convenience, say about angels at the time of death. Then Allah speaks about the end of time, what's going to happen at the end of the world in terms of the shaking of the earth and the blowing of the trumpet and so on. Then Allah states the arguments of those who deny resurrection, and Allah gives a short reply to it. Then Allah gives you a case study of your own and how he was invited to the truth and how you rejected it and how he was in the end destroyed. Then Allah spoke about his creative power, and we discussed all of those creative power. Some are also linked to Qiyamah as well. Then Allah spoke about Judgment Day and the two groups of people, and then the Prophet Prophet's role as a warner and not someone who is able to tell you when Judgment Day is. And then finally, how brief life will feel when Qiyamah arrives. So, what is the clear theme of this surah?
Qiyamah.
In one word, it will be Qiyamah. In one word, it will be the argument for Qiyamah, or the response to those who reject Qiyamah. So, how do you connect each? How do you connect the different sections? Like, in which way would you connect different things? And sometimes, like, again, there can be multiple connections as well.
Could we connect it in sense of time, like present time, future time, and past time, and then again referring back to the future?
Okay, so in terms of which section would connect to which one, for example? So I'm trying to think about. I mean, there's no like right and wrong answer. It's just like how you can reflect on the surah. So for me, if I start here, let's start here with the argument. Because I think the argument is central to many of the surahs. Is the argument, even the previous one, عَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عَنِ النَّبَإِ الْعَظِيمِ الَّذِي هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ. The argument is central. In the previous surah, the argument was stated up front. Here, the argument is stated later. So here, Allah gives a short reply. But what is the case study of Fir'aun in relation to the argument? What role does it play?
I think we have an example we have an example of what happened before when someone denied the truth and
Okay, so
refused
we
to
have
obey.
historical case study. Okay, good. So that's going to be a proof against that. What else here? What else is part of the argument? Which other sections are part of the argument?
Section 5.
Okay, so there's argument. And in here is response 1. Response 1. And this is going to be, let's call this response 2. And then section 5 is called response 3. How is section 5 a response?
Because just like it was easy for Allah to construct what we know as our life, it will be easy for Him to resurrect us.
Okay, so let's okay, let's actually just call this current observable evidence. Current observable evidence of creative powers. Okay, so for me, that's gonna be like one of the central themes. How is this a response here? The Prophet's role.
The role is a warner.
His role is a warner. So what is it responding to? Remember, the way they sing it is they sing a man is telling them about all these crazy things, not crazy, but like in their mind, it's crazy things. Like we're going to be born again, the world's going to come to an end, we're going to be resurrected, we're going to be standing before Allah Ta'ala, there's going to be hellfire, there's going to be heaven, there's all of these things which they haven't seen. So then they ask the Prophet, yes, how is this the response? فيما أنت من ذكراها إلى ربك منتهاها.
Isn't it maybe because just showing them that you won't have all the answers, because that's kind of what they're asking. They want the details of when it's going to happen and stuff like that. And he's just Allah's just saying that he's nothing but a warner. So it's
Okay,
adding
good.
to that argument.
So if someone comes to you and they tell you a lot of things about something, your natural response then is to want to like know when and where and how and all the details. So in terms of this here, let's call it like response 4. It's clarity on the role as a warner of the events, but not a specifier of the time. Because when you clarify that, it responds to their argument. Okay, so for me, those are some of the responses. But yeah, Bismillah.
No, I was just going to say that perhaps I also see it as a way that I'm just so maybe to add on to what Maulana is saying, that the Prophet's role as a warner is more of to the people of Makkah in their time, their current time, as a sort of a repeat of history from Musa and Fir'aun. And that's why I was going to maybe say that maybe the beginning of the surah is sort of a general statement of death, like minor. I see it as minor and major qiyamah, and then the first part is maybe the general aspect of it, and then the case study is a specific instance of it, and then in history, and then the Prophet's time is a specific instance in the Prophet's time, and then natural phenomena is what we can see sort of in our time, and that's until the end of time. It will always be observable, and in the last part is perhaps to close it off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's pick up on the minor magic qiyamah. So let's assume for now which is the dominant opinion. This is about angels and removing the dominant opinion. Ibn Abbas' opinion, dominant opinion is about angels removing souls. Therefore, that will be like, let's call it that the minor qiyamah, the personal death. Is the personal death something relatable, unrelatable?
Relatable.
It's a relatable example with insight into the unseen aspect of it. Okay, and then therefore the major qiyamah is I'm trying to think about the other phrases. It's almost like there's like when Allah speaks about Qiyamah, there's arguments. Like, okay, here's Fir'aun example, here's natural phenomenon example, Prophet's role. But there's also going to be a khabar aspect about Qiyamah. Khabar aspect means Allah is giving you akhbar about it. Akhbar means Allah is giving you information, news about it. So almost like it's going to be uh, um, like informing, let's call it describing the end of the world. So it's more like a khabar aspect of it.
Well, it's also perhaps the unseen aspect of it, whereas I mean, we can see the other people passing on, but we won't really see section 2. We won't experience that, and that can perhaps be evidence that comes later on, in maybe in section 7, as
Yes.
a warner.
So there's a seen aspect, and this would be an unseen aspect. And then in terms of the two outcomes, it's interesting. Where is the negative example and where is the positive example of the outcome? Who is a negative example here? فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى. Who's a negative example of that? Fir'aun is one, and who else?
The
In the surah.
mushrikun.
And the mushrikun. So where's the mushrikun quoted? Which section?
10 to 14.
And 10 to 14, section 3. So in other words, there's going to be the negative outcome. And if I had to put the lines in here, let me just put in a line in here quickly. If I had to put a line in here, do I have a squiggly line here? Could like one of these here, inshallah. So yeah, so in other words, the negative example would be these are mushrikun who are coming, and that is going to be the outcome if they persist on this path. And they share what? They share a historical case study with Fir'aun, because they are walking on the same path. Then now, where's the positive outcome?
F 41, where it says that final Janata Hill Ma'wa.
That's a positive outcome, but who in the surah does it refer to? There's one place it refers to someone. Where does Allah mention people who have khashiyah in the surah?
Ayah 40.
In ayah 40, let me just see. Yes, so in other words, ayah 40 and 41 are those groups of people in the year after. But where does Allah mention people of khashiyah in this life?
Ayah 45.
Section 2.
Where section 2?
It's ayah 8.
Okay, okay, so section 2, wajifah doesn't refer to believers. Wajifah just means like a general statement.
Okay.
Because wajifah just means that people they'll be overwhelmed, so their hearts will be pounding. It doesn't mean like it's like an imani thing. In the sense, everybody has iman on Qiyamah, even the mushrikun. So the wajifah. In other words, Dr. mentioned it's based on ayah number 45. So in ayah 45, what is happening? Ayah 45. How do you spin this thing around? Here you go. In ayah 45, the Prophet is a warning to
Those who fear Allah.
those who fear. So those who fear are mentioned where? At the bottom in 45. Are you with me? So we have death of the individual, death of the world. Then we have the arguments of those who argue against Qiyamah, a response to them, a response to them, a response to them, and all of their negative outcome. And then we have a positive outcome of those who have khashiyah. And who is their warner? Who is their warner?
Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, innama anta mundiru may yakhshaha, and may yakhshaha are going to be the ones who have the positive outcome because they have khashiyah. So you can see, like, in a sense, this is going to be, let's call it the thematic. This will be like the middle of the surah almost. Like from a thematic point of view, I don't know, like the thematic, but I mean, you know what I mean, like in terms of the structure of it. And then how about this last part here, 46? What's it linked to? It's linked to, basically for me, it's linked to all of these sections here. Let me just make it like this quickly. Who will feel like that? Believers or non-believers or both?
Both.
Everyone.
So that both people, but generally feel on Qiyamah, they'll feel like life has been very short. So when they come to Qiyamah, whether believers or unbelievers, they're all going to feel this way. Negative and positive, they're all going to feel that way. Okay. So that's, I don't know, any thoughts on the linkages? I just, I mean, I didn't even think about this before I taught this lesson now. I think it's useful for me to look at the surah in the structure, because it adds a lot of depth in terms of layout and thematics. And when you read the surah again, and then you kind of look for more things all the time. Were there any other thoughts on the structure, even different structures?
Maulana, you think that the last ayah is linked to or the last section is linked to the first section? It's almost like that at that
Explain to me
moment
how.
of death. Because in the first section, Allah describes like when you're dying, when Malikul Maut is pulling your ruh, you know, the Malaika is pulling your ruh. And at the end, if I read the translation now, it says it will be on the day they see it, like almost like the day when you're gonna die, they say you see the Malaikas come.
Okay, excellent. So that's a good connection as well. In other words, the first part is about death, and the last part is about the relative feeling of life, the brevity of life at the time of death and the time after death. It's also a good connection. Barakallah. So on.
And then also the section 2 that speaks about the day of Qiyamah. And section, let me just see what Maulana is. It is section 6. On that day, there's going to be 2 roads. So you're either going to go here or you're going to go there.
Okay, good. So those are basically all the Qiyamah sections, Tariq Qiyamah sections. Because basically on section 2 is the actual events and section 6 is outcomes. So these are the events and these are the outcomes. And these are the argument. So this is like a nice way of looking at it as well. So here section 1 is the end of life and section 6 is the brevity of life. And section 2 is the events of Qiyamah and section 6 is going to be the outcomes of Qiyamah. And then this is all to do with the world. This is like to do with the world, the arguments, the response, Fir'aun, examples, all about the worldly arguments. And this is the Prophet that'll as a warner for Qiyamah. Okay. I mean, you yes, Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. I just want to add something. The first section about the angels, there's 2 ways those angels are going to take our souls. The one is that pulling and the struggle, and the one is with ease. And it kind of ties in with everything here, with your actions, how you will be. And it kind of ties in with even before Qiyamah, you're going to know at the time of death, is it going to be good or not good? It's like the first sign, even before Qiyamah. And for me,
Okay, excellent. And Sister Hasina, can I ask, which one is mentioned first? The good death or the bad death?
bad one, the hard one.
Okay, in section 6, what outcome is mentioned first? The good outcome or bad outcome?
I don't know. The Musaf in front of me.
Okay. So yeah, so you can see section 6, I'm highlighting it now. You can see it's negative first
Yeah.
and then positive. And here we can put the same thing here. It's negative death and then positive death first. So negative death and then positive death, negative outcome, positive outcome, negative case study, positive case study.
Mullah,
With me.
do you think that one of the purposes of the surah is like meant for people who don't have that fear, and is to put that fear in them?
Definitely.
Khashiyah.
Definitely.
And to say, wake up, sorry. It's like
Yes,
you
yes,
should
yes.
be waking up, because then it's going to feel like a day or a part of the day. But
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, wake up call.
Good.
That's
Brother Ziad?
Assalamu alaikum. I just maybe not just also another reflection perhaps. It's just I noticed that it ends, or where the surah ends off with the prophet's role, and I mean he's the prophet for our time. It's almost like a call to action, like Sister Hasina said now. So it's almost like to just to the reader, to anybody reading the Quran, this is the actual maybe takeaway message.
Yes, good. So it's almost as if there's like it's almost like a positive half and negative half. For example, if I had to say that this year, let me just make this a bit more clear. This year is a positive half year, and then this year is the negative half. That's negative half there, and then you have your negative. I can have orange there. Let me just put this like this here. So I'm just doing, I'm just coloring the negative and the positives, just to like show it visually. But Ibrahim, you get a comment as well. Bismillah. While I'm busy coloring in here.
It was just looking at the number of verses for each section. When you recite the surah also, and then you get that feeling of brevity in that last sentence. But now also looking at the number of verses for all of the other sections, it's all like 3 to 5 verses, whereas that the one verse at the end, but it almost summarizes all of it, and it almost just feels like it's very brief when you're ending off the surah.
Okay, good. Excellent. So just even the brevity of speaking about the brevity is brief. Okay. And then yeah, these are all actually part of the arguments. When I say negative here, I don't mean negative, but I say these are actually all part of the arguments to the mushrikun. Argument. Negative outcome, positive outcome, the Prophet's role as their warner, and that life is brief, which is only really something which is grasped by those who are believers. Those who are not believers, they wish that they'd live for 1,000 years, as the Quran says. There's also going to be interesting look as, and then you have minor death and you have major death. Okay. Bismillah.
I was just thinking, I don't think Sister Tohida is with us today. She mentioned something last week that when she worked through Surah Naziat, she couldn't help but make the connection to Surah Naba. And I definitely understand what she means when I was going over the themes for this surah, because I think the themes just speak to each other. If you just look at the arguments and just an example in Surah Naba, there's reference to when the trumpet is blown on Yawma Yunfahu fi Suri Fata'atuna Afwaja. But then in Surah Naziat, there's a reference to the second trumpet, the second blowing of the trumpet. And so like, there's only like one example, but there's so many. It just speaks to each other. And then I think it was Ibrahim that mentioned, or maybe Ziad, how the last verse was so brief, but it also just stands out like as a summary. But this, I feel that the same, I mean, this is my personal opinion, the same applies to the previous surah. I mean, not even the full verse, just if I just think of Ya laytani kuntu turaba, like, if you just sum it all up and you come to that, and it's like, you don't want that for yourself.
Yes.
And
yes,
then you
yes.
look at Surah Naziat, and you look at it's only going to be an evening, or like, the morning thereof. That's what it comes down to.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
yes.
so much similarities.
I was looking at I couldn't find my summary for Amma. I don't know if I have it with you, but I was trying to look for the summary for Amma because I want to compare the two as well in this lesson. Because much of these, if I look at Amma's, I don't do the one again on Amma, but Amma يتساءلون عن النبي العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون. 1 to 5 in Amma is the argument. So if I had to put this, insert the column to the left here, this would be in Amma. This would be 1 to 5. If this had to be Amma, and it would be Naziat. So Naziat would be so that would be one difference. Then Allah says, وَجَعَلْنَا نَوْمَكُمْ سُبَاتًا. And then Allah gives a lot of things about in Amma now about natural phenomena, and that would be from verse number 6 until verse number,
I think 16.
16.
Yeah,
So 6 to 16 would be in this year, 6 to 16. But we can't see the sequence. Okay, so we carry on again, inshallah. And then
17 to 20 is about the day of Yawm al-Fasl, the day of separation, the day of Qiyamah.
which will be basically the same as it could be the same as Naziat, or it could be the same as and so there's a lot more detail about in Amma about the end of the time.
Yes.
And then at Amma, there's a lot of detail about the people who are going to suffer in Qiyamah. لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شراب إلا حميما وساق جزاء وفاقا إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا. And then the muttaqin is next. And then back to that. So I think for homework, what you can do is that if you can take something like this and just try to see how it links to the sections in Amma. So in other words, what you do is Amma you do on one side, and Naziat on the other side, and you connect the two. And you might find out that there is more insight into the surah if you compare the two. For example, you might say that, for example, something in Amma is brief in Naziat, but more expansive in Amma. And then you can almost like kind of compare the two, which I think is also useful. I don't know. I feel there's a lot of value in approaching the Quran like this, because I believe it helps you make tadabbur, and I also believe it adds to like your appreciation of the coherence of the Quran, and that unity within diversity. Even though there's diversity of sub themes of approaches, there's a definite unity to the surah. And I just guarantee you, like the more you just do this, the more you're gonna see, wow, and there's this, and there's this, and that, and there's this pattern, and it just like it keeps on coming towards you. So that's going to be the one approach. Then the other thing that it's also useful to do is to look for what we call, I think we did it before with the Dawrah class, is to look for what we call textual anchors. Who remember what textual anchors are?
There's certain words that are repeated that sort of draw the attention to a specific theme around that word.
Repeated words, repeated root letters, repeated meanings, repeated maybe structures also. So if you look at let's go back to Naziat quickly. If you look at Naziat, you're going to find that if you take like a highlighter and start highlighting, even Amma also, you take a highlighter, start highlighting what is repeated uh, constantly or often, it starts almost tying the surah together. So which things are repeated in this? And also we're looking also, let me just see, I didn't think about this also. The other thing also I would try to do also is try to, maybe we don't have time for it now, is try to also, especially Makki Surah, where actually Makki Quran is try to map the sound patterns to themes. So let's just go through some of that quickly. So example, والنازعات غرقا والناشطات نشطا والسابحات سبحا فالسابقات سبقا فالمدبرات أمرا يوم ترجف الراجفة. Do you have a change in sound pattern?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so here we have a I don't know what you call this stuff, like a mud ending. And then here we have يوم ترجف الراجفة تتبعها الرادفة قلوب يومئذ واجفة أبصارها خاشعة يقولون إنا لمردودون في الحافرة إذا كنا عظاما من آخر قالوا that okay, that goes all the way here until فإذا هم بالساهرة. So what's the sound pattern there? تا مربوطة for two themes. So it's تا مربوطة sound pattern. And then from 15, what do we have? هل أتاك حديث موسى إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى فأراه الآية الكبرى فكذب وعصى ثم أدبر يسعى. It goes all the way down. فأخذ إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى. Do we have end of sound pattern there? 26 at the end of the pattern.
Yes, we do.
Madha, the madha. What do you call that? Anyway, and then from verse 27, which pattern do we have? أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها فسواها ضحاها دحاها مرعاها أرساها متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم. It's almost like the conclusion of it. It's almost like a aha plus conclusion, like almost like a full stop sound. And then the outcomes, which patterns do we have then? فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى سعى يرى دنيا مأوى هوى مأوى. And then we have that until that's the again the mad pattern of the for that section. And then for the يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها and then we're back to the ha pattern again. The ha pattern for the spot and the ha pattern for the last one as well. Can you see how it aligns to the surah themes? It like aligns like beautifully in terms of as the theme breaks, the sounding also breaks, and it's very beautiful in terms of that's also part of the power of Makki Quran, because it's you're linking sound quality to meaning, and that's also one of the the powers of the Quran.
I just want to say, as Malana was doing that, like just mentioning the same sounds at the end of the verses, for the first time, I just got the feeling of what it must have felt like for the kafirun at the time when they were being recited these verses, and they would like put their fingers in the ears. I never understood why they would do that, but now like in Malana was like just like that repetition of all the has and the was. I almost got that sense of like how it can be so scary for them as well.
Yes, definitely, and that's just the sound pattern, let alone the fact that all of these verses many of these expressions would not have existed in Arabic before. And I think I've explained, I may just briefly say it again, is that Arabic uses the words of Arabic and the phrases of Arabic, but the Quran uses it in a way that was unprecedented. So then that will also like even shake people more, because we have never heard this phrase being used like this before, yet it sounds so beautiful and overwhelming, yet it's so completely innovative and new, and everything is like rhyming and patterning, and it's just like overwhelming in a sense. And therefore, as Ibrahim said, is that eventually you have to plug your ears if you don't want to be overwhelmed by it, and you have to stand. That's the interesting thing, when they used to have the times of Hajj in the Mushrikun, they used to send people to the borders of Makkah where the caravans used to come in, and they used to sing poetry against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they used to tell them, instruct them to plug their ears when they come to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like to avoid this man and plug this. Don't listen. Don't even listen to him, because he will bewitch you. And that was actually the power of the language, which we can't always appreciate. But for them, it was a bit like it was overwhelming in a sense. So it's a very beautiful, beautiful. So what I would like you to do, I can send this table, inshallah. Again, these are just, they're not right or wrong. I think it needs time. It needs time and it needs reflection. And the more we're going to sit here, we're going to find more and more things that are going to be tied together. And it's going to be, yeah, it's gonna like more and more of it's going to come out after a while. And especially Makki Quran, because Makki Quran is, in a sense, the target of Makki Quran has a very strong focus on moving the heart, stirring the heart. Madini Quran, a lot of it has to do with creating understanding, because Madini Quran is often very more like explanatory in its nature, whereas Makki Quran is there like literally just to make darb of your qalb, like to like strike your heart and to like change the way you just like to move your heart. And sometimes we have to, even like as you're studying the Quran now, like for me, this is not experience in the Quran as we're discussing now, this is like studying the Quran. But you have to study in Salah, you have to read this, and you have to like, especially for me, like recite aloud, and then you can like feel, you'll be able to feel the verses as you know the meanings, and you can almost like feel the verse. I'm not sure if you can like relate what I mean, but there's sometimes like yeah, it's a very strong, strong feeling that can happen at times when you can feel the verses. Therefore, many times you see like they have videos of reciters who are reciting and just like suddenly just start crying because they're overwhelmed with the power of the Quran. And it's something that we should try to be part of in our lives. So I was saying, especially like if you just try to read the Quran and read it like, if you can, from memory, and read it aloud, like in Salah, and then it has like a different type of impact than maybe studying it in a class versus making tilawah and finishing your khatam. It has like different types of feelings depending on how you approach the Quran. So my advice always is to try to memorize these surahs, because they're short surahs, they're common surahs, Juz Amma surahs. We should try to make it the goal that each one of us should at least memorize Juz Amma in our lifetimes. If you don't do anything else, at least memorize Juz Amma, and then because these are the ones you typically read a lot on a daily basis. So if you only know 10 surahs, you're going to find yourself reading 10 every day for the rest of your life. But if you know 20 or 30, then you have a much wider range. Because sometimes like the 10, you almost become, let's say, like immune to it, because you've read it like Qul Huwallahu Ahad so many times that you do need more surahs in your salah to stir your heart. So try to memorize more, and you'll find, I think you'll find it very easy to memorize once you know the meaning of it. And also now you know the theme also. Because now you're gonna go, oh, okay, now we've got Fir'aun. After Fir'aun, natural phenomena. Okay, and then outcomes. Like it's like easy. Inshallah. Any last thoughts or comments before we close?
Maulana, shukran. It was beautiful. It really inspires us to make the effort.
Alhamdulillah. And I listened to Abdul Rahman, he was speaking about Allah used to drive, and also his brother Sunnah as well. His brother Abdul Salam, his Sunnah as well. Is that when they drive, they used to read Quran. Like when they drive alone, they used to read Quran because this used to come naturally to them. And it's difficult when you're not a half, you didn't grow up reciting a lot. So then you have to almost like make a mental shift and a mental like niyyah, and then make the effort to start memorizing a surah. Okay, I'm gonna recite this every day. I memorize surah, I'm gonna recite it more. And then and then at the end you will like really enjoy it because it become part of your spiritual sustenance. Alhamdulillah. So I hope some of you are memorizing. Is there anybody who's in the process of memorizing this? Can I ask?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Maulana.
Okay, mashallah. So two of you. Sister Nuran, give some inspiration
yeah.
there. The others to
no.
memorize. Sister Dilshad, Bismillah.
Maulana, for someone who didn't have any madrasa, I'm finding it difficult, but I am trying and I'm finding it very uplifting. And I find that the reciters who do know Arabic, especially the Egyptian Qaris, you can actually hear the change in the intonation when they recite.
Yes.
And that helps me to learn differently or just to memorize differently. But it is an ongoing, I suppose, a lifelong struggle, alhamdulillah.
Yes. If you're starting out, my recommendation always is to find a teacher. Just because you want to get your makharij, your like pronunciation, your tajweed smoothly. So if you're starting out reading Quran, it's almost imperative to have a teacher, even a Zoom teacher, just to go over it with. It helps a lot because you can't hear your own mistakes. It's just like impossible. So you need someone else to hear it. Brother Muhammad Amin?
No.
Yeah, Maulana, also say shukran for you because alhamdulillah, most of the surahs I know, and it brings a different viewpoint when I read it, just to understand it a little bit more, as you today pointed out, and your salah becomes different, definitely. It's a different, but it's a ballgame. As just to know it and just read it as. Therefore, I'm not sorry for the last 2 years I've been with you and in this class. I really appreciate every moment. Alhamdulillah. I'm really overwhelmed today because what happens and how you explain and how the seniors, as I call the Dawrah, they help for us to understand it better. Alhamdulillah. I'm very happy today. Alhamdulillah. Shukran.
Alhamdulillah. Allah bless and accept. Alhamdulillah.
Amen.
And so Ronnie will give you some last words of encouragement, inshallah. So Ronnie, one of the seniors, you must encourage the others.
Memorizing doesn't come easy to me. I'll say that. But yes, I think understanding a little bit does help. I do try to actually read while I'm driving when I drop the kids at school, or after I drop them, because my daughter rectifies me like before the letter even came out, and she's already mommy. So it does help. But yeah, I think what I've picked up so far is that no matter how often or how seldom you recite, something that you've recited all the time, it could suddenly hit you. Just the depth of the ayah or the depth of the meaning. You might have understood it before, but there's some things like you'll do it again and again, and all of a sudden you understand it on a different level. So I'm just grateful that Allah has granted me this opportunity for the little bit of understanding that I have, and may Allah grant that we all stay on this path. Amen.
Amen. I think a lot of also do with timing. Also, is that like a verse you might understand it, but it may not speak to you at a certain time, and then another time of your life, because your context changes, now that verse in that moment speaks to you. So, like for me, that's what I think it's important to mention is that it's not just about knowing it. Okay, I know the whole surah and it's done. It's when the recitation is continuous, and then the verses are continuously speaking to you, and you will need a different verse in your life at a different time. And so there'll be times in your life where you will start thinking of either kunna idhaman nakhira, and start thinking about death. And there are times when you'll think about rafa'a samka fasawaha. You look at the stars, like it's different. It's like it just speaks to you different moments in your life. So I think that's important to keep the relationship. So it allows the Quran to speak at different times. Naziat, Bismillah.
I'm just now, just when Mullah was talking now, it reminds me of sometimes I often contrast the Juz Amma with Surah Baqarah because it gives different feelings. So maybe it's sometimes like Mullah was saying, it's if you can, get a bit of Juz Amma and then a bit of Surah Baqarah, it gives different feelings when we go
Yes,
through.
yes, yes, yes. Definitely. And Baqarah is all Madani Quran. Amma is mostly Makki Quran. So very different flavor, different feelings, different impact altogether.
So maybe that's
Altogether
one
from
of started one end and started that end and maybe meet in the middle, memorize a bit of both over time, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah, inshallah. I think just start with Amma first. Listen, take it slowly, inshallah. And I mean, the last thing I'd say, maybe in closing, is that I think if you have children, it's a gift for them if you help them to recite fluently and memorize a few surahs or a few ajza of the Quran. I don't think there must be too much preoccupation with my child must be hafiz, because that is really for a limited number of children. For example, if you have like 100 children, maybe like 3 or 4 will be hafiz or 2 will be hafiz. But I do think it should be a case of my child needs to know Juz Amma and Surah Yasin and Surah Kaf and 1 2 other surahs, and that's what I'm give my child for their life. Because sometimes like with the hifz, it's almost like an all or nothing. You have kids who are doing hifz and who are like memorizing ajza, and then children who are not doing hifz, like just know almost like just 10 surahs and they're done. So I think that there has to be a healthy middle ground where the general bar is raised. The general bar is raised where and often madrasa is not sufficient in terms of time and resources, not enough time to do these things. So you'll have to facilitate this in other ways, where your children, when they become adults, that they at least have a foundation in Quran. I think it's important. Otherwise, it's like a long for them to catch up later on in life and so on. So, alhamdulillah.
We must, Maulana, we must also raise the bar for ourselves as well as parents. Sometimes we want it all for our kids, and then we don't see ourselves for the memorization, and we want to invest everything in this child. And however, I remember when I got the decision to promotion, but it costed me to travel to Atlantis, which is 50 k's from my home and then 50 k's back every day. And I miss it now because I memorized so much Quran in that particular journey that way that I regretted when I reached my destination, because especially when you reach that stretches of roads that there is nothing on the road other than you, the Quran, Allah, and His creation in front of you.
Yes, alhamdulillah, it's a good use of time, especially in traffic in the morning and driving and so on. Barakallah, may Allah bless and protect all of you. May Allah Ta'ala grant us all protection during this difficult time. The virus is really, really bad now. COVID is very bad. They're speaking about the Delta strain now, which is like 30 to 60% more infectious than the previous strains or the previous variants. So my advice to all of you is that in Islam, the preservation of life, the preservation of family, these are important principles of our deen. So don't take these things lightly. And one of the principles of all of our Islam is darul mafsada, is to avert any harm. And so my advice to all of you is don't take this what's happening lightly. Take your precautions. Avoid gatherings in the next few weeks. Gauteng is really, really, really bad now, and if we go that way, we're going to see lots more loss of life and lots more people hospitalized who are young and relatively healthy. So make your du'as, but also take your precautions, take it seriously. It's part of our duty as Muslims to do that, inshallah. So make dua Allah must grant us that safety and protection for ourselves, for our family, and for those who are infected, may Allah grant them lots of sabr and shifa and ease during and after their affliction. And for all of those who are passed away, one of the sisters messaged me now that the husband of Auntie Hafsa Ismail, one of our class members, passed away on Wednesday. May Allah grant him the highest place in Jannah. May Allah fill his qabr with nur. And to all of those who are passed away, may Allah Ta'ala just elevate their status for their suffering and the illness and their sabr during. May Allah grant them the death of martyrs and the resurrection of martyrs. And lastly is that it could be you and I next. It could be you and I next. So like, do take it seriously and do like let's be in tawbah and istighfar. I think it's important just to turn back to Allah Ta'ala while we're healthy. So if we do become ill, alhamdulillah, we come with a clean heart.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum.
Hassan,
Maulana, my name is Hassan, one of the students. I'm in ICU. I'm in ICU right now. Last time, Hassan Mal, please make dua for me and all those that are sick. I've been listening to you and everyone, so uplifting, subhanallah. And I know that my life is already singing members on our gathering. I just walk out of my room. I'm in isolation, and there are people on ventilators. Alhamdulillah, I'm not the one as yet that I'm on oxygen. So I'm asking each one of you now, please make a special dua for me and for all those of us. Hassan, shukran, jazeelan, shukran for uplifting words of all of you, Maulana, that are so inspiring each and every Sunday to us all. Shukran, shukran.
Alhamdulillah. We'll make a special dua for Brother Hassan. He says he's in ICU at the moment, and I have hope in the rahmah of Allah Ta'ala. This is the state of the believers, that we always have a good opinion of Allah Ta'ala. We thank Allah Ta'ala for any condition we're in, and we have a positive hope towards the future, inshallah, because the future is in the hands of Allah Ta'ala, and He loves His slaves. And whatever outcome there is, we love Allah Ta'ala for that outcome, and we are content with whatever outcome. And we make dua for yourself, especially listening to this lesson in ICU. May Allah Ta'ala grant you complete shifa. ربنا سمت بالبأس اشفى أنت الشافي لا شفاء إلا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما. May Allah Ta'ala, the remover of all ill, may Allah Ta'ala remove all your ailments, all your ailments, all your pains, Ya Rabb. May Allah Ta'ala return you back to full health and all those around you. And may Allah Ta'ala make this, most importantly, a means of your purification, a means of your attainment of eternal paradise, the paradise where there is no harm and there is no illness and there is eternal good life. Allahu Ameen. And please keep in touch with us in terms of how you're doing, inshallah Ta'ala. Let Sister Nasreen know, inshallah, and we can share with the class as well. And let's please speak with Brother Hassan and all students in our du'as, inshallah Ta'ala. May Allah bless and protect. Allahu Ameen. Barakallah. Keep us in du'as as well, Brother Hassan. Your du'as are close to Allah Ta'ala, and keep us all in du'as as well, inshallah. Barakallah. Barakallah. We'll see everybody next week, inshallah ta'ala. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.